You and R. Kelly haven't spoken for many years. If he were to walk into the room right now and, have a conversation with you, what would be the thing that you would tell him?
Probably to send those girls home. I'd probably tell them to send them home, and if they want to come back, let them come back on their own. That's probably all that I'd be willing to discuss at this point, because I just don't understand why he won't just let them go home if they'll come back on their own.
Well, you were in a similar situation. You're talking about the two girls. Was it Jocelyn Savage
And Azriel, yeah.
and Azriel? Right. You were in somewhat of a similar situation. Did you ever feel like you were trapped and couldn't leave and couldn't go home?
I didn't feel like I was trapped, but he did make it kind of difficult to just up and go. Like he'll make you miss flights. He'll do things like not get on the phone. If it's a situation where you want to do something that you feel like he doesn't agree with, or it got to the point at one time that I had to start making up emergencies for reasons why I needed to go visit someone, or I'd always have to have a really good reason why I needed to do certain things. So yeah, I can understand why it is difficult for them to get away. And if they probably don't want to upset him. And, I'm sure they do care for him. So, they do probably want to be there at this point. So I would say, they're going to have to get tired. And, everyone does that on their own time. But other than that, I would say even if they don't want to leave him, if he could just let them go home for a weekend or so, see their families, because that's all their families want, is to see their children. And if they say, you know what, Mom, I'm going back, because they're grown, they can do that. I don't see how
Well,
that I don't see that as being far fetched.
yeah. I mean, you mentioned the families. A lot of people have looked at this situation and said, okay, everybody knows about R. Kelly's history. Everybody knows about the trial. Everyone knows about the Aaliyah story and so forth.
Mm.
How much responsibility would you put on the families of even bringing their young daughters in the vicinity of someone of an R. Kelly with this type of established, reputation?
Well, me personally, I wouldn't send my daughter. But from what
That's what I'm saying.
from what I've heard, because I've spoken to the Savages, and they're really good friends of mine. They really didn't follow the trial much, and when what they did know, it wasn't really clear, especially since the girl was saying it wasn't her. So even though we're good friends now, I guess at that time they probably didn't really believe my story back then. But I think the fathers thought that they had more control than they did. And that's ultimately what happened. They thought that they could control the situation and always be there. And it just so happens that they weren't able to do that, because he already had in his mind of how he could get around that, because he's been doing it for so long.
Right. Well, I mean, this trial is going to come up sooner or later, unless he
Yes.
pleads out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I can't imagine a plea deal, because there is no slap on the wrist plea deal with this many charges.
Right.
So
And I mean, this isn't the
I'm
first go round either. You know what I mean?
right.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is he's going to take it to trial,
Yes.
and we're going to ultimately see what happens, and he'll have his day in court, as will everybody else. And we'll see what happens.